This episode is made possible by our sponsor, Landmark College, the college for students who learn differently, offering comprehensive supports for students with ADHD and other learning differences, both on campus and online. Learn more at lcdistraction.org.
I wanted to do well. I wanted my parents to be proud of me. I wanted my teachers to think I was smart. I wanted the other students in the school to think I was okay. And deep down, I thought I was never enough for anybody.
Hello, and welcome to Distraction. This is Dr. Ned Hallowell. We have on the show today a wonderfully interesting, inspiring woman by the name of Kristen Seymour as our guest, and her life changed dramatically when she discovered that she had ADHD. She'll tell you her really inspiring story, and this brilliant woman struggled until she discovered that the reason for her struggle was not lack of discipline, was not that she was lazy, was not that she was, sort of morally infirm, but rather that she had this undiagnosed condition. And once she discovered what was going on, she turned it all around, and she will tell you what a difference it made. And this is what's so inspiring and what's so exciting, and why more people really need to understand the truth about this condition. And let me just tell you the degree she has to all those teachers out there who put her down and said she couldn't make it. Kristen now has a Master's of Science in Nursing. She's a registered nurse, and she is also an adult health clinical nurse specialist, board certified. In other words, she's a nurse practitioner with special qualifications in cardiology. So let me introduce my friend, fellow ADD-er, Kristen Seymour. Welcome to Distraction.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, let me just ask you to open you up. Just tell us your story.
Well, I struggled with undiagnosed ADHD combined type, inattentive and impulsive, from as long as I can remember through the age of 19, when I finally received an accurate, thorough, comprehensive diagnosis with a neurologist, psychiatrist, and pediatrician on board.
Now, when you say you struggled, what? Tell me about those stories.
Well, activities of daily living that most children, students, youngsters deal with every day, like getting up, eating, going to school, being on time, going to bed at night, completing homework, were complete torture chambers and challenges for me. Most kids could get up on time, have breakfast, go to school, go to class, bring their homework home, finish it, and go to sleep at night. Everything was a challenge, from waking up on time to getting everything together, to get in the car, to go to school, to go to class, be late for class, forget a book in the locker, then dread the homework task, go home, try to do the homework, would look at it all organized, look at all the book covers, dance around my room, do anything but homework, then be up late trying to do the homework, then I couldn't sleep at night and calm my brain. And this was a vicious cycle that constantly occurred.
All through childhood?
All through as long as I could remember.
How did your parents deal with you?
Well, since they didn't know what was the underlying cause, they just would get very frustrated, but they would also put resources in place, such as tutors, psychiatrists, counselors, people to help me.
But none of them made the diagnosis?
No. I was tested in fourth grade, around the age of 10, for a learning disability because my IQ was very high, between 135 and 140, and my parents kept finding out that I was getting straight C's and D's. I had a tutor in every subject starting in third grade except for PE and art all the way through senior year.
Did your parents blame you? I mean, what kind of discipline did they?
They were very, very strict. They were very regimented. They tried to keep us on a very strict schedule and tried to foster everything they could to make things easier for me. But at the same time, they wouldn't understand why I would do impulsive things, such as I would, in first grade, I slapped a fellow first grader in the face for her swing at recess.
What do you mean for her swing?
She was swinging, and there was no...
In a swing? You
yeah,
mean
like
on
a playground. On a playground. Thank you. On a playground. And I always would swing on that swing. And this was a new student, and I asked nicely 3 times for a turn. She said no, and I just hauled off and slapped her in the face. She fell off the swing. I hopped right on and started pumping away. And
what happened to you?
The teacher came over, and we told her what happened, and I was hauled home. My parents called home, and I was taken home. And I got a pink slip, and I was in trouble. That was a big point for my parents.
What's a pink slip?
It's like a demerit. It's you're in trouble, big trouble. Because the key here is most first-grade girls especially do not slap.
Right. So what did your parents make of it? What did they
That was their first sign that something is deeper here.
What did they say to you? Do you remember?
Well, all I know is they made me write an apology note to the student. And they didn't ground us. I was only in first grade, but I was punished. I think I spent the night in my room. But I never hit anyone again. But the point there was that was not age-appropriate behavior. And
what did you think of it? Why did you?
I had I wasn't that remorseful, which was really weird. It was impulsive. I just did it.
Right.
And thought about it later.
Right.
And I felt a little bad, but not really. I did find that student after writing the book, and I found her, and she's now in California, and I apologized for that incident.
Did she remember it?
She remembered it well.
Really?
Yes. And I found her, and it was quite a moment emailing her back and forth.
Was she receptive to your apology?
She was amazing. She said, "You are so cute, Kristen. I can't believe you found me to apologize." But my point is, people do things that are out of character. I mean, going to sleep at night was a struggle. I'd have to have pure pitch black room, total silence to calm the brain, because every time I'd be woken up by a shared toilet being flushed, a door being shut loud.
You had siblings?
There were 4 of us total. I had 3 siblings, older brother, younger sister, younger brother, and they couldn't walk on eggshells all the time. And so when I'd wake up, I'd come out and yell at them, which I know you've referred in your books to quickness to rage. And so I'd come out, I'd be yelling at my siblings they're trying to get settled to bed. It was just always this constant turmoil.
How did they deal with you?
They were sick of me. Typical. Mom's frustrated. Dad's frustrated, nothing's working. Mom doesn't know what's going on. Brother's ticked off that I'm getting attention and, being obnoxious. My sister doesn't understand because we have the same parents. We're eating the same diet. We're going to the same school.
Right.
We have the same routine, but she's a straight-A student, athlete, could sleep soundly. So when you look at all of this, I'm thinking, what is wrong with me? And so then you start to have some depression. And then I would take things like cookie dough and hide in my closet and eat that because I'd feel better.
To sort of self-soothe.
Right. And a lot of kids, I think, I find out do this because they can control food. And they can take it and makes them feel better. My mom and dad would have us all on a sports team to kind of channel that energy I had. But it was fascinating because I wanted to do well. I wanted my parents to be proud of me. I wanted my teachers to think I was smart. I wanted the other students in the school to think I was okay. And deep down, I thought I was never enough for anybody. I remember wanting to be the janitor because his job looked so happy. He looked like he liked doing it. It was easy, and he wasn't struggling like I was. Or the greenskeepers of the school. I just envy them because I wanted to be anywhere but that classroom. So most kids with ADHD want to do well. They're pleasers.
Oh, yeah. So, but how did you explain to yourself why you couldn't? I mean, you were getting C's and D's, right?
Right, and that's exactly where the whole culprit came. I was trying. I was not successful. The tutors helped, and I would pray. I prayed every night. I prayed at every Thursday Mass at school.
You're Catholic?
Yes, for God to make me smart.
So you thought you were stupid?
Yes.
Even though you have a genius-level IQ, you thought you were stupid.
I thought I was very stupid and incompetent and kind of a loser. So I went to the school that we wore uniforms, and I loved the uniform because no one could see my scattered brain. I thought we all looked alike. That maybe they would think I was like them. I felt comfortable looking like everyone else. Loved dance class and the leotards. Everything was consistent and felt very organized. No one could see the unscattered brain when I could control that. So you
felt a lot of shame.
Yes, that's a good word. That's actually really telling a good word. And then when I was and so I would
So you
struggle.
went through high school
Yes.
in St. Louis?
Yes.
Catholic high school?
Yes.
So
And
a lot of structure. You had a lot of structure.
A lot of structure. Everything that my parents in the school could do to help me, they did. My parents did know eventually that, I mean, they knew actually pretty quickly, like in maybe middle school, that I was trying and I wanted to do well. We just, despite getting tested by a learning disability consultant in fourth grade, it failed because in fourth grade it was like the mid-'80s and the best research and books that were out about this ADHD and ADD condition were not published till early 90s. So everything, they just chalked it up to a careless, distracted student who needed a lot of structure and tutoring.
So you got told to try harder.
Exactly. Kristen's not working to her potential was pretty much, or careless Kristen was pretty much on every test.
Careless Kristen, that was what you were called.
Yep. Sometimes the teacher would make me move my desk to the hallway and have the door open so I wouldn't distract other kids. It was tough.
And through high school,
All the way.
the same story.
Oh, yes. Attention-seeking behavior, trying to be loud, hiding erasers from a chalkboard. Because we didn't have smart boards back then, I would hide all the chalk and erasers and make everybody laugh, and then the teachers frazzled. But I was happy because we were delayed in class, and then everyone was laughing, and the teacher was a hot mess.
So you would take all the chalk and all the erasers and hide them.
And then she would delay class having to go get more, and I was excited because we had no more torture class. But and then I went to school as a pregnant nun on Halloween at a Catholic school. And then I got in big trouble for that. And then
at the Catholic school, you went to a party?
I went to the
Halloween party?
I went to the school Halloween party.
Dressed as a pregnant nun?
Yeah, and the sisters were not happy. Sister Kara was so mad. She was so mad at me because at Halloween we could dress up at the school.
Right.
And I dressed up with this habit and as a nun, and I had 9 months written across the front. That was not my best move.
You got suspended?
I think I actually got Saturday Club, which is when you have to come in every Saturday.
Oh, boy.
And but I was just a little stinker. I would do anything to get attention and make people laugh because it made me it compensated for the inability and failure I felt like inside academically and performing in everything.
And then you went off to college.
Yes, despite my parents' wishes, I attended the University of Kansas. And this is prior diagnosis.
Right.
I lived in a dorm, did not have a car, had a very kind of a studious roommate. And quickly I switched roommates to a partying roommate, another great choice. And within 18 months, I think I achieved a 0.0, a 1.8, a 2.0, a 0.8.
Grade point average.
Grade point, GPA. My parents were just, first semester, they're like, do better. I had a 1.8 first semester GPA. And they're like, go back and do better. And I said, well, I really need a car to get to and from class. It gets darker earlier this semester. So they allowed me to bring the car, the convertible, up to Kansas, but under the precedence of no leaving campus, no leaving town except to come to St. Louis for holidays. Well, not long after that, I took off with the car and went to Drake University in Iowa for a fraternity party with an old friend. Was going about 110 on I-35, littering, smoking. I mean, there was probably open container. And all of a sudden, there was a barricade of police officers.
Oh, my gosh.
A helicopter had radioed in Iowa to the highway patrol. And the highway patrolmen, there were 3 or 4 patrol cars lining the highway, barricading. I could not get past them. I received 5 tickets, huge fines, driving barefoot, no seatbelt, littering, everything. And then I impulsively handed the police officer my fake ID instead of my license. That and most people would go home then. Like, this is a sign, you should go back to college, go back to KU. No, not this impulsive girl. I just took off and kept going to Drake. So those were
they gave you the tickets.
And then let me go.
And let you go, okay.
So I went to that party, came back. Little did I know my father would receive all those tickets a month later, call me. I got in so much trouble. They came up to KU, took the car away. So my final chance was summer school, and I impulsively lived at KU, tried to make it up with no car at KU, and I took my roommate's car without asking her, impulsively.
So you stole it, basically.
To go tanning.
Tanning.
Course, yeah.
Okay.
And she's, of course, in class. I take her car, and I get in a car accident in the parking lot of the tanning salon.
Oh, no.
So I leave the scene, go in and tan. These are all impulsive decisions.
Yeah.
None of these are thinking it through.
Right.
None of these are age appropriate either.
Right.
Some of them are, but not all of them.
Right.
To the extent and extreme I went through was insane.
Right.
And just not thinking.
Yeah.
But smarter than that. So that was the end of my friendship with her. And long story short, my parents finally said, "You're coming home." And that was when I had flunked out totally. My friends didn't want anything to do with me because I was getting them in trouble and harming their property. I went home with literally a 0, failed freshman year, no friends, and my parents had 0 trust. And that was the turning point. That was when Dr. Garrett Burris, Dr. Bunbury, psychiatrist, Burris is a neurologist, and my pediatrician met with me and my parents. They knew my parents.
You were how old now?
19.
Okay.
I turned 19. My parents knew there was something deeper rooted, whether it was a psych condition or whether it was, ADHD.
Right.
Within 15 minutes, they said this is so textbook ADHD, inattentive, hyperactive, impulsive type.
Right.
It was incredible.
Right.
So I was relieved. I knew my why.
Tell me about that.
Well, I was actually almost crying when I found out because I was so happy to know that this was not my fault, that this is not a controllable. Some things can be controlled, but many of the things I was feeling and doing were not controlled. They were beyond me.
Right.
It was a true neurochemical condition of communication, and I was grateful. I thanked my parents for not giving up on me and giving me this diagnosis, and I thanked my parents for loving me enough to get doctors to really evaluate me. And then I was relieved that I knew there was a reason. So once I knew my why, I could do anyhow. How am I going to be a success? And the key, Dr. Hallowell, that I have to say is I wanted to be Florence Nightingale since I was 5.
No
I wanted
kidding.
to be a nurse since I was 5 years old.
So you had this dream of
being a nurse.
And why?
I loved taking care of people ever since I was really young. And whenever someone was sick, whether I knew them or not, I would run up and take care of them, bring them Band-Aids, ride my bike to my grandmother's house every time I could when she had a procedure and would take care of her. Yeah. And I had my tonsils out at age 6 at Barnes Jewish Hospital. It was Barnes Hospital back in the day near Washington University. And my dad took me for ice cream at Queenie Tower Restaurant. And I was on the 17th floor and I said, I'm going to be a nurse and I'm going to work at this hospital.
Wow.
So knowing my dream, when I gave up on my dream after KU, that was when my parents knew something's really wrong. And that's why we had this thorough diagnosis. So
you got diagnosed.
And then went to the community college in St. Louis, which is not fun. I mean, going to a junior college after you've had all this.
Right.
And then I received 4 O's. So
were you on medication?
Yes. Okay. Dr. Burris put me on Ritalin, extended release, 20 milligrams twice a day. The clarity that occurred within hours of this medication was fascinating.
Talk about that.
Well, the road was clearer. The trees were greener. It was almost like when you have a foggy windshield and you turn the windshield wipers on from the condensation. And it was, I want to say it was instantaneous, but it was within hours. And I just could not get over the clarity, the focus, and the retrospective shame of my behavior at KU all within that first year of being on medication. I was like, oh my gosh, I never would have probably done those things now because I was able to slow my thoughts, focus, and think. I had like a little inner coach going on. And the clarity was fascinating.
So there you are on Ritalin. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there you are on Ritalin with this incredible awakening, clarity. Yeah, it was euphoric. And then I went and attended community college full-time, all science. I was just focused on my pre-nursing. My parents said, if you can do this for 18 months and achieve a 4.0, A's and B's, and live in our house with our rules, we'll try college again. Did that. Wow.
4.0s straight up.
Wow.
Got into Valparaiso University College of Nursing. Excel in Valparaiso, Indiana, about an hour from Chicago. And I received admission into their accelerated year-round nursing program, which was a complete honor. Straight, honor roll there, 3.5. Then I got a scholarship, and I went and achieved my Master's of Science degree and trained at University of Chicago. So all of this is on medication. So that was, so that's about 6 years from 92 diagnosed. on Ritalin twice a day all the way through 99.
Yeah.
And then I tapered off. I had the master's, had the bachelor's, passed all my boards.
Wow.
And I knew I wanted to have children. Weaning off is very tough, but you can do it. You just need to do it under the supervision of a physician, whether it's your GP, psychiatrist, or neurologist. Just taper off slowly, and by this time you should have coping mechanisms and cues in your head and mind and life that you can cope without the medicine.
So were you still single, or?
Oh, I was married October 4th. I am married still. October 4th, 1997, and I tapered off in 99.
Okay.
Of the medication.
Okay.
And so Jim was also very acutely aware of coming off of the medication.
Mm-hmm. So you got off the meds because you'd learned coping strategies while you were on the meds.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
And then have you remained off ever since?
No. I was off. I had 2 daughters, 03 and 06. And then around 08, the fog was coming back. And I say that where I was spending money a little more impulsively, not thinking things through. I would start unloading the dishwasher, forget. I forgot my child at Montessori, picking her up. Just major things that are like not things I normally would have forgotten. And we just moved across the country together. There were just a lot of dynamics. So I called my doctor. I'm like, do you think I'm being, a little crutchy, like needing the crutch, or do you think there's something going on? And he said, fly in. I want to see you. So during this face-to-face evaluation, he could subjectively look at my cues, eye contact, behavior. And immediately he said, I think we should try a low-dose medication again just for the situational anxiety and what's going on. I mean, whole new life. So I went back on there then for a few years and then tapered back off.
And it helped?
Yes. It helped regain focus and task completion, organization, and clarity. And people always say, well, that's a crutch. Medicine's a crutch. Well, think about it. When you break your leg, you use crutches to heal. It's okay. Get on your medication. These are dynamic processes in the brain. And you're hormonally, your brains can change in dynamic, right? It's dynamic.
So you continued to work and be a mom. And you didn't leave anyone at Montessori anymore?
No. And I was paying bills on time. Things were much more in control and focused. And then we had moved back to St. Louis. And my boss, she said, Kristen, you're such an excellent employee. We want you back. So when we moved back to St. Louis, I worked part-time. So in this whole realm, I've been married 20 years, career 21, same boss for 18. It's telling to the stability and consistency that a lot of people don't have with ADHD. Especially in marriage.
I always say marry the right person and find the right job. Then you've done both.
You're exactly right.
So did you go back on medication?
I've been off since 11. And then recently, like in the last year, I went back on for all this. I got full-time work at Barnes Jewish Hospital as a cardiac CNS, cardiac clinical nurse specialist, as well as 2 girls, a husband, and my book talks and presentations. So it's been a little bit kind of hard to follow through and finish things. So I went back for that.
And which medicine do you take now?
I was on Adderall, and then I tried the new trial medication, an early bird of the Mideas, which is an XXR, Vyvanse. And I found that the
Just
Adderall...
for listeners, it lasts longer than Vyvanse. It's extended release, Mideas.
Correct. And it's great for many people.
Yeah.
It was a little strong for me. So my physician and I decided after about a month of giving it a good try that I'm back on the Adderall. And if
Adderall XR? Or?
Adderall 30 XR Q every day. So it's extended release once a day.
Okay.
And there are days I forget or I don't take it or if I'm on vacation. But with the high-level job I have where I'm bringing in patients from across the country, needing to focus, remember to call a doctor back, these are things that can be missed if I'm not 100% hyper-focused.
Sure.
So I really do find it beneficial for me.
Yeah.
And I've been on meds for a long time and don't have any, thank goodness, long-term side effects, which is what people have asked.
Yeah, there are none. That's why your book is such a wonderful book. You're telling a true story that really can help people. The Fog Lifted. It's a wonderful story. And then you also wrote or put together a binder.
A resource binder for parents.
Yeah, it's a marvelous resource. Tell us about the binder.
Thank you. The binder is a result of the book from parents saying, how do you even go about getting your child tested? Mm-hmm. So it kind of just is a step-by-step for parents, bullet points, really summarize some of the best research and some of the best books out there on IEP 504. Those are under the IDEA and FAPE, the Fair and Appropriate Public Education Acts from the Department of Education. So because it's a federal law, IEP and 504 for any learning disabilities or mental health conditions for children, this binder is applicable to every state. And it really walks a parent through how to write a letter to the school.
Wonderful.
Okay, then we do this. Here's the timeline for when you should hear back. And then tips, tools, recipes, and things that work to organize mom, dad, and the child.
Now, if someone wants to get that, how would they purchase it?
The binder, they can just write me through my website or on my email address, and it's ksfoglifted@gmail.com. And then I also have my website, which is www.adhdfoglifted.com, and they can write me through there, and I can ship them the binder. The reason it's a binder is so the parent can put their child's report cards, IEPs, vaccine records, everything in one place to advocate for their child.
And if they want to get your book, they can go to Amazon, right?
Absolutely.
And it's called The Fog Lifted by Kristen Seymour.
Yes, and it's going to be on Audible.
Do you narrate it yourself?
I do.
Oh, wonderful.
So it's very, it's funny, it's emotional at times, but it's a very cathartic, kind of real account of how you can be victorious, but the struggles one can face as well.
One of your greatest victories was saving a man's life. You want to tell us that story?
I was on a flight to Naples, Florida, March 17th of 2016, solo. My husband and children were at home, and I was on the first flight of the day, and we were departing down the runway, and all of a sudden we're heading to the runway, and we turn around and go back to the jet bridge as a plane. They stop, they turn us, and they bring us back, and we're like, what's going on? The stewardess, the flight attendant, tapped the intercom and said, ladies and gentlemen, we have a medical emergency. We're heading back to the gate. So I look up, and I'm in row 20, and I see this man who's probably in his early 60s, late 50s, diaphoretic, very sweaty. And he's in a red golf shirt, and I could see the sweat coming through. And I look at the girl next to me and said, I think he's having a heart attack. I tapped the stewardess next to my row and said, hey, I'm a nurse practitioner, advanced practice nurse in cardiovascular nursing at WashU, Barnes-Jewish, if you need any help. She says, no, we're okay. So they go to the front of the plane. The man is very, very short of breath and in chest pain. I hear them over the microphone. Lady in the white jeans in the back of the plane, the nurse, we need you now. This is where ADHD is my best asset and comes to the rescue. Impulsively, instinctively, unleash my seatbelt, run to the front of the plane, hyper-focus on this man. Calmly and accurately assess him. Check his heart rate, look at how sweaty he is, find out that he has had a heart attack 4 weeks prior and has a stent in place, which is a device to open the artery after you've had a heart attack. And his wife is crying. The patient is really in distress. I have the AED next to me, an automatic defibrillator just in case. And I get a health history from him. I'm doing everything I can without an EKG machine or modern advances. Administer oxygen and aspirin, nitroglycerin. Those are medications you give to someone when they're having a heart attack. So we did that. And then I, of course, made sure 911 was called. Hyper-focus, impulsive, instinctive. That is completely my gift of ADHD to help save this man. But further, this is where I think this is classic ADHD versus a layperson. I went off of the jet bridge into the terminal with the EMS, the paramedics, and explained to them my degree, and I instructed them to bypass the closest hospital because this man had a good chance of going into shock. And I called Barnes-Jewish, a level 1 trauma center, which is only a few miles further, alerted the cath lab he was on the way. So they took off. They did what I said, took him into the cath lab. The man was open. They saved his life.
What do you mean he was open?
They opened his artery that was occluded again within 56 minutes. The patient lived. And I got back on the plane, and I prayed the rest of the flight that he would be okay.
You went back to the plane?
Yep, I did. When he went to Barnes, the hospital, I went back on the plane. And Everyone's like, you want a drink? And cheering. I'm like, no, it's 7, but okay. No, thanks. So I sat back down, prayed for the patient, filled out an incident report. And when we landed, my boss had called and told me how he did, and he did beautifully. So since then, I have been in touch with the family. The patient's doing great, and he was able to walk his only daughter down the aisle and see his first grandbaby. But I don't think I don't believe if the fog was still there, I would have reacted that way.
Sure. Yeah.
Or if I didn't have these amazing gifts and how to channel them.
What would you say to people out there listening who think they might have ADHD or know someone who has it?
I would tell them that this could be a very good thing. And let's find out what is going on and start with your general practitioner, your doctor. And then to take it a step further, if it's a child, that not only their doctor, their pediatrician, but maybe an empirical tester. Make sure we're not overlooking some sensory processing, visual spacing, other issue, dyslexia, what have you. Maybe have a psychiatrist do a consult.
Unfortunately, Kristen, not many even psychiatrists know about it, and particularly in adults, and particularly in adult women. So you were actually very, very lucky to get diagnosed. It's a condition for reasons I don't quite understand that most medical people just don't know about. So you were lucky, and you mentioned getting tested. There is no test for ADHD.
Right.
The closest thing we have to a litmus test is the history. Sitting down, what that doctor did and could tell you pretty quickly that you had it because you're so classic. But if you don't know what it is, you can be as classic as you want to be and not get diagnosed. Someone like you in most parts of the country would have been diagnosed with depression, anxiety, maybe bipolar, and never would have gotten the benefit of the life-changing, life-saving, changing benefit that you got from this wonderful diagnosis and treatment that literally, changed everything for you, didn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Perfectly summarized because I do believe at times I felt like, and I was diagnosed with a culprit of angst, anxiety, depression, et cetera. And it was such a relief to know, hey, this is good. This is okay if I manage it properly. And the key there is to really not self-medicate, self-diagnose. Manage it properly. Get to know a good, reputable physician who can truly help you.
Right. It's a wonderful story, and you're so generous to share the hard parts of your life, not just the triumphant parts of your life. This has been wonderful, Kristen. You're really a godsend, and what you've done is really fantastic.
Well, thanks. So are you.
Well, thank you. But
all those books are amazing.
Well, thank you. It's wonderful to have you on, and this condition, ADHD, is so misunderstood and so overlooked and sort of often caricaturized. And as I said, particularly adult women, they just don't get diagnosed because people don't think of it. But you're living proof of what an incredibly powerfully positive intervention it can be to get diagnosed and treated.
Well, thank you so much. You're right. The negative stigma is primarily why I wanted to kind of come out there with this information and my journey and share it and be so honest.
Well, thank you. Kristen Seymour, the author of The Fog Lifted. She certainly has triumphed, once the fog did lift. Thank you so much for joining us on Distraction.
Thanks.
The episode you just heard was made possible by our sponsor, Landmark College, the college for students who learn differently, offering comprehensive supports for students with ADHD and other learning differences, both on campus and online. Learn more at lcdistraction.org.